Hi, I'm Brandon Smith, and I'm an arc flash survivor, and I'm happy to be joining the EPSCO team to help pioneer safety and safety culture, safety environment for future generations so everybody can make it home safe. Well, I always grew up wanting to be an electrician. My father and grandfather got me into it. And then I took limited schooling, got a job. I was actually doing really good, talking about getting a truck and everything. Well, I ran out of work, got put on a different job, and then the accident happened one day at work. And I didn't take proper safety measures, which I wasn't trained in proper safety measures thoroughly, but I did it without saying something when I knew it was unsafe. And it almost cost me everything. It almost cost my family, or my wife a husband. It almost cost my kids their father. And it caused 2 years of pain. Well, my story started with my dad, and he was an electrician at UT. He then moved to maintenance, and my grandfather was an electrician. And I had a carpentry teacher that he was an electrician, but he also did construction. And he really got me into it. He had me wire 2 different cabins while I was in school. And his brother actually taught electrical at a different school that I went and took his class too. But I've always wanted to do electrical. Started residential straight out of high school, 2010. And they had layoffs about then. Economy hit hard. I ended up doing odd jobs and everything. Worked for an electrical supply company for 4 years. And that gave me more knowledge of the material and everything, and actually taught me about some of the safety gear. And in Knoxville, they really don't have a lot of training. Like, you don't have to get a journeyman's license. Only one person at the company has to have an electrical contractor's license to pull permits. And they don't even require you to take school. Which I just finished my 3rd year at that point, but they don't require that. You could get a contractor's license and hire somebody off the street. And I feel like that lacks in education. If you don't have the training to be an electrician, why would you have the training to be safe doing electrical work? All the training I had up to that point was 3 years of electrical training through the NCCER. And that was about it, and on-site training. What I had for electrical safety training was them talking about arc flash suits and talking about de-energizing, which it wasn't really where it was applied. It was just talking about it out of a book, which doesn't help you. And I feel like it lacks in Tennessee on any type of training. Well, the day of, like I said, I was just over there helping them, and my best friend of 30 years was working on that job site. Well, me and that foreman didn't get along, but he liked my buddy. So he put me and him together working on projects. The first half of the day, just same old stuff, and I was just gonna have an easy day. Well, it comes lunchtime, and he said, I gotta get you guys on a special project. We gotta swap over these transformers. They won't let us shut down power, we gotta get them swapped over. And so we're like, okay, we'll do it. Well, we get the piper in and everything, and he comes up there. He said, all right, I'm gonna pull the fuses. And well, he puts the high volt gloves on, pulls the fuses, packs the stuff up, and leaves. And we get the wire pulled, and he comes down there. He said, all right, you feel good hooking it up? Well, me as a third-year apprentice trying to make a name for myself, I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I got this. Well, it wasn't worth it. I should have told him no, which technically you're supposed to have a journeyman with you if you're an apprentice. But I should have told him no. And I shouldn't have sacrificed that or risked anything, especially with one child and one on the way. It should have ran through my mind. I think the reason they didn't de-energize is because they didn't want to lose that time with their other workers. They wanted to keep them working on that project, to push that project, to get profit margins at the end of the job. The quicker you finish the job, the more money you make. So they were willing to do whatever to make it happen, and trying to push that even though it wasn't a pressing issue. They would not turn power off to keep everybody else working. Just, they didn't want their concrete guys to stop for a day. Which is mainly for light. But everybody's got battery powered lights. So I think it was just to make money. And then I wasn't even hooking it up yet. Now in the box they had the ground lug, or neutral I guess, but it had a random wire hanging off of it. And it was maybe that big. And I was like, I'm gonna just take that out first. Well, that's what I was taking out, and my buddy said something, so I turned around to say something to him, and I was turned like that away from it. And then it blew up, and I didn't even get that piece out, but I wasn't even hooking it up yet. All it had was that shield, but I knew it was hot. I knew the load side, or line side, was hot whenever I started that. And I just wasn't thinking. I was just that same mentality a lot of people have of, it's not gonna happen to me. I mean, I've done this a million times. It's okay. Well, that day it said no. I was kind of dazed and confused. I just kind of turned around and stumbled out of the room. And then my buddy said, "You're on fire." So my first instinct was fall. Chipped the tooth, everything, and started to try to roll. Well, stop, drop, and roll really doesn't do much on concrete. So he ended up ripping my shirt off, and then we had a little fight over him carrying me versus me walking on my own. And we walked down 7 flights of stairs, which we saw like 2 people that were holding flashlights for us and got us down there. Get out on the sidewalk. When we got outside, it was a little bit warm. Kind of felt like a light sunburn on me. It was already burnt bad enough to where I didn't have nerve endings. So there's a fire truck going by, and I had about 20 construction workers going and slamming on the side of it. And 2 cops were eating across the street, and they came out. And they came and helped me until ambulance got there like 15 minutes later. Had the city inspector there. He was taking pictures of me. And I really didn't know what was going on. I couldn't feel nothing. I guess it was my adrenaline. I was just dazed. And I wouldn't even let the ambulance driver touch me. I got on the gurney myself. I said, you're not touching me. So I got on the gurney, gave my dad's phone number, and I said, "You better knock me out. I don't want to feel none of this." And then I was out for 3 days, and when I woke up, or actually before I woke up, I was dreaming 2-3 days, and I was stuck in, it was I was in a wheelchair, bandaged up, I couldn't move, and I had a TV in front of me with nothing on it. And I had a nurse that would come around, and there was like a white columns on one side, and there was a balcony with a bunch of smokers out there, and there was like trees everywhere, dead trees, and I just had to sit there. And when I woke up 3 days later, the nurse actually looked like the nurse that was in the dream, so it was kind of freaky. But I was worried about if my old foreman knew I was okay, because I was working on his project, and me and him were good buddies. So I wanted to make sure he knew I was okay. I wanted to make sure my unborn baby was okay, and my son was okay, and figure out what happened and how bad it was, because I was just all bandaged up. All I could see was white bandages. So I just had to get my head together, which I was on a constant hallucination the entire time, because they had me on 25 medications, and just to numb the pain. And I was out so long and couldn't get out of that bed so long, whenever I finally could get out of bed, I had to relearn to walk. The muscles in my legs had deteriorated so much, I had to build that back up. It was like a newborn deer when you see them get up, they're kind of wobbly. Yeah, that was me. And it took a month before they could even get me into wound care. I was so badly beaten. And that's a room that's 95 degrees constantly. And they put you on a metal table with a drain at the bottom of it. And they get kind of like a pressure washer and scrub and clean off all the old skin, try to prevent any type of infection or anything, which I got lucky. Almost everybody in there, or anybody who gets burns, gets an infection. I didn't get any. And with as big of a wound as I had, it was a miracle. And that room I had to go at least twice a week. At the end of it, I was going every day into that room to get cleaned. And they got to where they were doing my occupational therapy while I was on that table. So my hands are like that, and guys over there just bending my fingers out and stretching, and while these guys are scrubbing my skin dry. And yeah, it was rough. I had at least 1 to 2 surgeries a week while I was in the Vanderbilt. I had over 20 surgeries altogether. I don't know the exact number because I lost track, but I know it was over 20. And that went over a little over 2 years of surgeries. And I had to do therapy a little bit longer than that. And it was a rough process. I couldn't move my arm past there whenever I came out of the hospital, and that's after all my surgeries. I had that range of motion. That was it. My accident caused 41% burns. And it was my entire right arm, my entire chest, lower stomach, from my elbow down on my left. And they told me, they said, when you came in, we almost had to amputate your right arm to your elbow and your left hand. And then they got further into it, and the first surgery, the grafts took. They said if you had typically about 20% hold the first time, I had 80% hold. So I got really lucky, because if 20% held, I would have had to get amputated. And then after they figured out they didn't have to do that, they were looking at my hands, because I had to get donor muscle in my right hand. I didn't know they could do donor muscle, but when I first went in, all my grafts were donor. Well, one of my surgeries after that, when they took all the skin they could off my legs. When they finally got rid of the donor muscle, they just ripped all it off, took skin off my legs and slapped it on. So that was a fun experience waking up to. Donor sites hurt a lot worse than the graft sites because they cut down right above your nerve endings. And they did 3 on my leg, and then they took a donor spot from my side because that was really the only on my upper body that was good. And they said they didn't want to take off my back because I'm already going to be in pain from my legs. And I can't lay on my sides. I can't lay on my stomach. So they just took it from my legs. And it was painful. When they took the burn pack, which is just a piece of plastic to hold oxygen in over where they cut the donor site out at, they gave me 2 shots of Dilaudid, 3 oxys, and they had me on a ketamine drip and IV. I felt every bit of it, even with all that pain medication. It's intense. And another side that people don't realize with burn patients, they'll give you, it's such an intense pain. So it's so painful that they'll give you oxys until you tell them you don't want oxys. They have programs set up, but they can't, it's so painful they can't scale your pain. So they don't know if you're in pain or not, which is an issue that a lot of people have to deal with after getting out of the hospital with burns. A lot of them get addicted to the oxys. When I got back to Knoxville from Vanderbilt, they had issues getting me my gabapentin, which was my daily pain medication. But I had no issue going into there and getting the oxy. And that's just supposed to be for when it's intense. And from where they can't scale that pain, they'll just give it to you because they don't know. They don't know if you're abusing it or if you are in pain. I feel pain every day still, but it's not bad enough to where I need that medication. But I don't really have an addictive personality. Well, as the arc flash happened, it just so happened I was about to have my second child. And leading up to that, I was still dealing with my son getting older and wanting to be jealous of her, so I had to give him more attention. And I was nervous about my daughter being born because that's the first little girl. I'm afraid I'm going to break her. Like, my son, I'll throw him in the air. I'm fine with that, but little girl's different. And I was actually about to go pick her up after work that day. And my aunt watches them, and she was a little brat because it was after my accident. The accident happened July 25th. She was born August 19th, the day after my birthday. So she had to wait that extra day. So she wanted to be a brat. She's still my favorite birthday present I ever got. And here I am, a 27-year-old in a hospital bed, just had a baby that I can't see. And I FaceTimed, but I didn't actually get to meet my daughter until September 11th. I got back from Nashville on September 10th, and I couldn't even be with them. The hospital made me stay at my dad's house away from the kids for the first couple of months. So I just saw my kids sporadically. And my son was confused. He really didn't go near me because he was scared of my grafts. And the only way I could hold my own daughter was have a pillow on me and let her lay there, because I couldn't wrap my arms around her because of the injuries. And she still couldn't hold her head up, so I couldn't do anything. And I couldn't change a diaper. They said I couldn't change a diaper for a year, so I couldn't help my wife with that. And just, it's difficult not being able to do stuff for your kids. As the man of the house, from an emotional standpoint, It was sitting in a hospital bed, not being able to move. How am I going to support my family? And I won't be able to go back to work. When I do go back to work, how good will I be? Will I be able to get to the point I need to be to do what I need for my family? And it's extremely hard because I was out of work for 10 months. And I wasn't able to do anything. And my wife at the time was doing all the housework and taking care of the kids, and I couldn't do anything, and I felt real bad. I had to sit on a couch. And half the time, unless she was there with me, I couldn't hold my own kids. And I couldn't play with them. I couldn't get down. I couldn't pick my son up. And my daughter wanted to be all over me, so I couldn't do anything. And it was just real difficult dealing with not being able to provide like I used to. Because I was always the one that would work overtime. I'd make an extra effort, get side jobs just to be able to support my family. And going from that to not being able to do anything for my family. But what I think could have prevented it is more training for apprentices and journeymen and more safety training for foremen, so if they have to put somebody in that position, they can put somebody in that position. And owners, I feel like, need that training too, whether they're going in the field or not, just so they're not telling somebody to do something without having that knowledge of being there. Like they actually know what has to happen, instead of assuming that it's all safe. Another thing I think could have prevented is de-energizing. It would have shut off the entire building, which that fed the whole floor. It was fed on bus duct. But one switch would have de-energized the entire building, and they could have shut down for, let's say, if we had everybody on it, it would have taken maybe 4 hours. But it took me 2 months in the hospital to get out of the hospital. And it's just not worth it. It took me 2 years to recover. It's a day's worth of work. Sacrificing a day's worth of work is worth a hell of a lot more than getting hurt for 2 years. If it's unsafe and you don't have the training, don't do it. If you don't feel comfortable in the position and you're worried about your boss getting rid of you or whatever, still don't do it. It's not worth it. That extra 10 to 30 minutes of making sure it's all safe is worth doing. If you shut off power, you can do a job in 2 hours that normally would take you 2 days. And it's better in the long run to be safe and make it home to your family than to put yourself in that situation.